Hi folks, so I had every intention of recording this full moon video before the full moon in Cancer a few hours ago, but of course I'm only now getting to it, which I'm pretty good about doing my full moon videos before a full moon, and yet this time around the busyness and the escalation of tasks and energies that a full moon creates just did not end up making that happen. There were other priorities that came in the way, etc., etc., etc. Not entirely unusual, in fact pretty typical. As you go from a new moon 2 weeks ago to a full moon, I always refer to that as a wave that is gathering momentum, as at the time of the full moon the wave is at its highest and getting ready to crash to the shore. Now, the wave can be emotional, the wave can be intuitive and somewhat murky. The wave, whatever it is an increase and an intensification of energy. Sometimes it's an increase and an intensification of busyness. Sorry about the sirens. I don't know what is going on in this city right now, but it's like siren central. This is like the second time I'm actually recording this, but I'm going to keep going through it. Unless it becomes really distracting like it did the first time. There was like a siren, and there was like a car slamming its brakes, and this is, yeah, I don't know. Talking about full moons. Now, let us pay attention to this full moon. The rulership of the full moon is very straightforward. The full moon is in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon, so the moon rules and disposes of this chart in its own sign. The moon, you know, when we talk about the sun and the moon and Mercury, Venus, and Mars, the so-called personal planets, they're really referring to different aspects of ourselves. The sun, our truest self and our soul and our connection to spirit. The moon, I will come to in a second. Mercury, our mind and our cognition and our interactions and our communication. Venus, our heart. Mars, our energy and drive. When it comes to the moon, I really think of the moon as our personality. Typically, in Western astrology, you will hear the moon governing our emotions and our intuition. I think the moon is more powerful than that. And if at any point you ever want to know what it is, if you want to get a sense of what it is that's going to be going on for you at any given time, all you have to do is, if you know your chart, pay attention to what sign the moon is in and what house that sign occupies. And I'm telling you, issues related to that house will come up over the 2.5 odd days that a moon spends going through each house. If you want to make that prediction even more fun and even more accurate, you can always see which house the moon is traveling through, transiting through in your lunar return, as well as your natal chart. Now, I'm not going to dive down this rabbit hole right here. That will leave for a separate video or a separate topic of discussion in terms of really try getting a sense of what a particular day or particular series of days could be about. But the moon is ruled by Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon, and it is a full moon in Cancer, and the moon disposes of this chart. So the energies heading to this full moon, the last 48 to 72 hours, an intensification of our intuition more than anything else, an intensification of our personality as it grapples with our surroundings, our life, and circumstances. Hence things like busyness, hence things like murkiness, and trying to make sense of murkiness, hence a sense of awareness, a sense of intuitive awareness that is knowing. I'm going to keep expanding to the second part of this video now. There's like 3 or 4 things I want to cover. One was the rulership of the moon, but what this is automatically leading to, and I think you can tell because I've been trying to explain the rulership of the moon, and it's been a little bit mysterious so far. I want to talk about now the aspects that this full moon itself makes, and there's one aspect that is essential here. That is the opposition to Pluto. Now, the full moon that everyone is talking about, The full moon opposed Pluto just before it became full. Pluto is a planet, as I mentioned, this is why I did my Mercury retrograde video yesterday. It goes hand in hand with this particular video, so I'll place a link to it at the end of this video. Pluto is an extremely important planet right now. It is in Capricorn, so it helps to know what house in your chart is occupied by the sign of Capricorn and what that house stands for. And that house is certainly going through a transformation right now, and a transformation that is very forward looking. I want to say a transformation that is helpful and beneficial, but words like helpful and beneficial and good luck and bad luck ultimately don't really make a lot of sense, because the transformation could be felt in a challenging way. The ending of a job, the ending of a relationship. So what is good luck and what is bad? We're going to leave the judgmental aspect of it out of this. It does have a very forward thrust to it. And by forward, I mean energies that really must have made their presence felt in your lives by November 19th, related to the November 19th eclipse in Taurus. So the sign of Capricorn and the sign of Taurus support each other. They're earth signs, and the houses they occupy are supporting each other. And the transformation in the house occupied by the sign of Capricorn is supporting, are leaning into, and are putting energy into, and are developing the issues related to the house that is occupied by the sign of Taurus. The North Node just moved into Taurus a few days ago, and Uranus is going direct in Taurus tomorrow. Something that is important and relevant to this full moon, and I'll explain why. Pluto is the planet of death and transformation. Now, I'm less interested in mortality and more interested in the kind of permanent and dramatic and complete and intense and significant change that Pluto creates. Now, Pluto transits over a sign for over a long period of time, so it's not likely to be one of these kind of sudden earth-shaking changes, as much as it's a set of changes that has been going on for over a decade now, that has moments of concentrated energy, and we're certainly experiencing one now. And as I said, whatever the changes that is happening or being demanded or being asked for, or that is being created in the house occupied by the sign of Capricorn in your chart, is supporting forward movement. At the same time, we have a full moon that opposes Pluto and that trines the South Node. The energies, overwhelmingly as far as the chart and the time are concerned, are forward moving and forward leaning. However, the full moon is a full moon of release, an awareness of what needs to be released, an intuitive awareness of what some of these changes might be, even if they're not here yet, an intuitive awareness of what you might need to do in order to manage these changes and contend with them, especially if there's some sort of power play involved. Now, changes often involve other parties or other entities or other situations. Something is being changed or transformed or being removed or being added. So there are typically other parties in the mix when it comes to changes. And so sometimes there's an element of watchfulness and trying to get a sense of what it is that is going on, or what is afoot, or where things are going, or where things are headed, and what is my relationship to whatever it is that is going on with a person, with an organization, with an entity, with a job, within a relationship. And those changes, some of which might be out of my control, can I direct them in a certain direction? Do I have some influence over them? Or am I watching them so that I start to develop an awareness that these changes basically mean that at some point I'm going to need to exit the building? Should I stay or should I go? And it's not quite as simple with this full moon, because there is an element. Pluto is also a planet that indicates codependencies and intimate involvements and intricate involvements and um, sometimes power dynamics and power play. Uh, People who seem to understand each other or misunderstand each other, but who are kind of connected. And there can be one-upmanship, there can be intense involvement, there can be entanglement, there can be chess playing. And whatever it is that is being transformed in this, wherever the sign of Capricorn sits in your chart, this full moon looks at it, looks at Pluto, looks at this transformation, and the awareness that it achieves is intuitive. It may not feel certain, it's not mercurial, it's not definite. It occurs in this kind of subconscious, subterranean part of ourselves that makes you aware, kind of what might be going on, so that our responses to it, it wouldn't surprise me if the lead up to this full moon had your intuitive antennae up to see what other people were saying, what they're doing, what they're asking for, what information is the universe making available to you, what are other people's behaviors. And some part of you is disturbed by it and looking at the facts and the data and what is coming up and going, how do I feel about this? What do I think about this? But certain things are being registered in your gut when you are dealing with a lunation that is ruled by the moon herself. And at its best, as you headed towards this full moon, and even now, you might just have a sense of, oh, I think I know what I need to do about this. You don't have to act on it immediately, but this is the way the moon tends to work. It doesn't tend to work with facts and data and information. It doesn't have the kind of soul clarity that the sun brings. It is much more reflective. It is much more interested in seeing what is being reflected back to you, and what you're noticing is reflections in the actions and the words that others are. The moon is, after all, reflected light. But because we're not really trained or conditioned to work with the energies of the moon, it can create a certain amount of disturbance. But as I said, the best thing about this disturbance is that if you are in the middle of transformation that has not yet happened, as I mentioned to you yesterday, the transformation may really occur in February and March, but the spin cycle, the root of the transformation, the eye of the storm is here. And this full moon looks directly at, it's not just Pluto. The sun and Pluto were conjunct one day before the full moon. So at the time of the full moon, the sun is opposite the moon, which always creates the sense of eruption and truth-telling. Our personality and spirit, our soul, have a face-off, have a reckoning at the time of a full moon. But then we've also got Pluto involved. Pluto is dark. It is like a new moon, like a new Pluto, because it's right next to the sun. And it is a new cycle has just started with this transformation that is going to occur. A new annual cycle has just started for Pluto. Okay? Because the sun meets up with Pluto once every year. For a few years prior and for a few years hence during the month of January, because Pluto's in Capricorn. And so Pluto and the sun have done their cosmic download and determined what it is that needs to be shifted and transformed, and where does that things need to head. And now I come to the third part of this, which is what are the other transits that this full moon is encoding. Talk about forward moving. The sun and Pluto are trining the north node in Taurus. So this transformation, this is why I'm saying this transformation that is occurring in the sign of Capricorn and the house that it occupies is totally committed to forward movement as set up by the November 19, 2021 lunar eclipse, September 19th to November 19th, new energies. I don't want to call them new energy. Well, they're new insofar as they're setting up the agenda for the next couple of years. And those energies need other things around us to transform, related particularly to the sign of Capricorn, where it sits in the chart and the house it occupies. And the Sun and Pluto meeting up are trying to create this change and this synergy. And then this full moon happens that goes, oh, this is the change that is afoot. So what is my relationship to these changes? How do I maximize what I can get as far as these changes are concerned? The full moon trines the south node, which is a point of release. And the murkiness may concern the sign of Scorpio and where that sits in your chart and what needs to be released there. This intuitive awareness somewhere. This murkiness could be connected to issues that have been brewing in the past that are brought to your attention again, some sort of repetitive cycle or repetitive pattern. This murkiness could very much be connected to whatever's going on in the sign of Capricorn, that is changes that are trying to support where it is that you want to go. And somewhere, the personality part of you may very well have been processing, what is my relationship to this? How do I play this? How am I going to manage this? How am I going to control this? Who am I playing chess with? Shall I make this move and shall I suggest this? What should the other person do? Blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, of course, Mercury is retrograde and Venus is retrograde. I'm not going to delve a lot into that right now. I did a video on that yesterday when I talked about Mercury retrograde. And I've done a video on Venus retrograde that I linked to at the end of the Mercury retrograde. I'll link to that at the end of this so you can look at it there. The other transit that we have to talk about is that the retrograde Venus trines Uranus. Venus retrograde in Capricorn, Uranus going direct tomorrow in Taurus. Venus in Capricorn, Uranus in Taurus. Again, a Capricorn planet and a Taurus transiting planet trining each other. So, support again. The Venus retrograde does square Chiron in Aries. So, whatever is being healed in the Aries part of your chart is likely to be a little bit uncomfortable by what some of these opportunities and these forward movements are. Okay? So I covered the primary aspects created by the full moon itself and also the primary aspects around the time of the full moon. The energy is overwhelmingly saying, come this way, these are the changes afoot. The full moon's energy is also very alert to what it is that needs to be released. That is an energetic leak. It could be that somewhere as a result of this full moon activity, there are two things that are going on. What is my relationship with these changes? Whether they're supporting the forward movement or when it comes to supporting the forward movement, and how do I maximize my opportunity there? And when it comes to releasing what needs to be releasing, what actions do I need to take and where do my boundaries need to be set in order to complete that release that needs to occur? Where do I need to either thump my tail or draw the line or let something go? That's also a kind of boundary that's being set, right? It's a more internal boundary. It's not necessarily an external boundary. So all of that, all this disturbance, all this full moon murkiness, somewhere in the middle of all the change of the busyness, I would not be surprised if your internal compass has been activated. How do I move forward? What do I release? What actions do I take? What boundaries do I set? And over the next 2 weeks, you might be doing all of this. Remember that the changes will be here in February, March. I'm going to stop this here. Share, like, subscribe, click bell icon next to subscribe button, comment, whatever floats your boat. I'll be back soon. Thanks. Bye.